Thank you. I'm so honored and excited to be here today. I want to thank you all for being here. I believe at the core of my being that educators are today's most important leaders. All of you, whether you're teachers or students or thinkers, innovators, administrators, you are showing children that they are valuable, that their lives have meaning, and that they can create a better tomorrow. Education is the single greatest force to unleash our combined human potential. So thank you for the joy that you bring, for the faith that you give, and for the way that you are uplifting our combined destiny. I would not be here today if my parents had not made the decision to put me in one of Pakistan's better schools. They came from humble origins. My father was orphaned when he was 9 years old, and my mother was married before she had the chance to go to college. So they worked hard, and they decided that they would give me and my siblings the best education that the country had to offer. I was very lucky compared to millions of girls, many of whom lived not far from me, who never had the chance to go to school. And while this opportunity opened doors for me, I always had a very complicated relationship with the education sector. I was mostly bored at school. I felt constrained and uninspired. Fortunately, I figured out how to make it work. In Pakistan, the only thing that mattered was passing your annual exams. So I would skip school, not do my homework, and then study very hard before the exams. It made my teachers very, very angry. But I wasn't trying to be rebellious. School just didn't engage me. It never gave me the answers that I was looking for. It felt vacuous, and it force-fed me ideas that didn't make sense. A distorted version of the history of Pakistan, a limited understanding of culture and religions. I often did not want to know what they were teaching me. Instead, I wanted to know the answer to this: why this girl, who was 7 years old, in a community that had been flooded in Pakistan, had to walk 1 mile every day to get water. And I wanted to understand why these people, the Taliban and other extremist groups, thought it was okay to publicly beat women. There was a growing sense of tragedy around me. My country was crumbling. There was extreme poverty, severe imbalance of wealth, a growing mindset of religious extremism and intolerance, and education was doing nothing to combat that. In fact, in many ways, it was contributing to the radicalization of society. So that's how I spent the time that I was not at school, volunteering in women's prisons, where children were born to mothers and never left because there was no one outside waiting for them. I understood there what it meant to be a child who was discarded before he or she was even born. And I understood there the roots of hatred. Or volunteering in an earthquake relief camp, where I was the only female volunteer, hiding away in the tents with other girls and women who weren't allowed to go outside because their brothers and fathers did not want them to. I understood then what it meant to be a woman in the hardest circumstances in the world and to feel that your very existence was a source of shame. What I learned in these situations was never taught to me in school, is never taught to most children in school. But my experiences in these situations were the greatest source of learning for me. They were transformative. When I was 18 years old, I got a scholarship to go to Stanford University. That opened up so many doors. I felt a lot less crazy in the presence of other dreamers. And I thought about trying careers that I never even knew had existed. That's also where I found Malala. I was a sophomore in Stanford, and things were getting worse and worse in Pakistan every day. There were growing suicide attacks, bombings, insecurity. And one day, I saw a video about a girl, 11 years old. She was speaking out and saying that the Taliban were not letting her go to school. She said, "Help me, save my school, save my Swat Valley." I felt deeply accountable to this child, and I decided I had to help. So that summer, I went home with a plan. I would arrange a summer camp, and I would bring to that summer camp Malala and other girls like her. And I would help to empower them to be more effective advocates for their community, training them, introducing them to people who could help, giving them ideas, showing them how technology worked. Their spirit left me completely awestruck. They had so much force, and all they needed was a chance. The summer camp was very successful. The girls went back, and later on, the military intervened. Schools reopened. Malala got to go back to school, and I stayed closely involved. I graduated from Stanford 2 years later, and I joined business consulting with McKinsey & Company in Dubai. I was hoping to do education consulting work in the Middle East. About a year into my job, I had just landed in Egypt when I got a text message on my phone, and it said, Malala has been shot. I still remember how distraught I felt at that moment. She had been shot by the Taliban on her way home from school. They had stopped her school bus, asked who is Malala, and then shot her in the head. She was critical. I called up my mother at that moment and said, you need to be there. And so over the next couple of days, as Malala hung on for her life, I got many offers for help from people in the US, people in the UK, people like Gabby Gifford-Surgeon who wanted to fly in. The whole world was shocked to know the truth that in the 21st century, a 16-year-old girl could be shot in the head for wanting to go to school. The day that Malala was flown to Birmingham and her family flew in, I flew in as well to be there to help her recover. But I wasn't the only one who was so deeply distraught at Malala's shooting. All over the world, people were questioning how this could happen. And all over the world, girls from Afghanistan to LA were standing up and saying, I am Malala. I too am suffering. I too have a battle, and I too will not be silenced. I knew that there was an opportunity to take what I had known was a huge crisis in education, particularly for girls, and to create a movement. Malala was awake. She had recovered. She had suffered no brain damage. It was the greatest miracle that I had ever seen. And she said, I want to help other girls. I knew that her campaign was going to grow and that she needed someone by her side. So I made the decision to stay. And over the last year and a half, have been working with her to build her advocacy movement, including how she raises her voice to bring attention to issues of girls' education, helping her get her book together, and then launching the Malala Fund. The last year for me has been a culmination of many things that I have learned through my own experiences and through my interactions with others. And I'd love to share them with you as a community of leaders working to create a better world where everyone has an education and the education is meaningful. The first is that access is a huge issue. We don't realize it from far away, but there are millions of children who are not in school, and that's not acceptable. The cost of educating these children is not prohibitive, and yet we are losing generations every day. The global community needs to recognize that this is a crisis, that this is an emergency, and all that needs to shift is that this needs to be a priority. Over 100 million children, 66 million of those girls, are being lost as we speak. A number of things are changing in the world that open us up to innovative ways to solve this issue. And when I say innovation, I don't just mean technology. Yes, technology is opening up new ways of doing things at lower cost. We can provide high-quality content on low-cost tablets to the most remote areas. We can get data on how students learn at their best. But there is also grassroots innovation. Entrepreneurs in the most far-flung areas of the world are struggling and fighting to come up with effective ways to educate students. Malala's father was one such entrepreneur. In the Swat Valley, when all other schools shut down, he fought to keep his school open. He encouraged his daughter to blog anonymously on the BBC to tell the world when no journalist was speaking out about what was happening in the Swat Valley. We need to find, uplift, and support grassroots entrepreneurs and cultivate a cadre of leaders globally who can be advocates for this movement. And innovation is not just about access. It's also about rethinking what we mean by school and learning. There's a number of solutions out there that we know work, but we refuse to embrace. Cash stipends for children who are in poverty have long been shown to be one of the most effective ways to keep the poorest children in school. And the cost of them is much lower than the cost of having these children drop out. And yet they're not embraced as widely as they should be. The list goes on, but the need to think about solutions innovatively, whether from a tech or from a grassroots innovation perspective, is critical. Third, as much as we're all excited by innovation and new ideas, the fact of the matter is we need to reform systems as well. Governments, multilateral institutions have the money, access, and resources to solve this problem. And as difficult as it is to engage with the largest bureaucracies, unless we push systems, this will not be solved. And that means entrepreneurs, innovators, leaders, thinkers, teachers, and governments collaborating and conversing. The cross-functional nature of this solution is crucial to solving it effectively. Fourth, girls matter. It's long been shown that girls are the most effective way to develop a country rapidly. For every dollar that a girl earns, 90% of that she invests back into her family, compared with 30 to 40% for each man. If you can educate a girl and keep her in school through adolescence, you delay her marriage, you delay her childbirth, and you give her the chance to earn an income. This is the one shot that we have to prevent another generation from falling into poverty and to make sure that these girls are marrying when they are ready, having children who are healthy and educated, and actually earning an income. And lastly, education has to be inspiring. And this is something that applies across the developed and the developing world. Education is about nurturing creativity. We are hurting children by teaching them that their intelligence is only measured by how well they perform in standardized tests. Many brilliant children think they are not smart because they are judged against a particular view of the mind. Imagination is more important than knowledge. An education that focuses on a narrow idea of learning is stripping away our creativity, curiosity, and self-confidence. To me, this is the most exciting innovation of our time, the evolutionary challenge of today. How can we inspire the very best in our children and help them see the best in themselves? So I leave you with this. Can we promise, or at least hope, that we will be the generation that puts every child into school and nurtures their creativity and empathy? Thank you.
Hi, Shiza. Thank you so much for that wonderful talk, and it's just such an honor to have you here. I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about, we have a lot of educators here, and I feel like you are Malala's best educator. What was it about Malala in your relationship that really led you and inspired you to leave your job in Dubai and commit to helping her?
When I first reached out to Malala, I felt a deep sense of connection and accountability. I knew that it could have been me, and I felt very deeply connected to the issue. And the truth of it is, all of us are, one degree of separation away from a very different life. People often say what keeps me feeling grateful, and that is the knowledge that one turn in the other direction and the opportunities that I have today would not have been here. And the reality of so many girls is so harsh. By the time that I went to see Malala in Birmingham, I had known her for 5 years, and there was a very deep personal relationship. She was family to me. In fact, most people think we are family. But also, I was deeply passionate about the issue. This had been something that I had been fighting for since I was 14 years old. And to see that she had this whole new platform, which was overwhelming and also exciting, made me feel the need to be protective and to help empower her to be a more effective leader. I think mentorship is such an important thing for all girls, for all women, for all people. I embarked on this journey very young, and every day there's 5 people that I speak to who I consider mentors. And the need for girls, particularly in the harder places, but globally, to have people that they can count on as friends, people that they can look to, is something that we can't underestimate. When I asked Malala what the most effective thing about the summer camp that I hosted was, she says, I saw women who looked like me, women who covered their head and were Muslim and had careers, they had jobs. And that ability to look at role models, to look at people and say, I can be this, and this resonates with me, and then to get advice and guidance and know that they're cheerleading for you, that they're rooting for you, is so instrumental.
One of the things that you rarely hear that I think was great, and this last slide is perfect, is that access and creativity conversation together. So how do you think you take some first steps to going after those two things in the same time? Because you have often the creativity people, often the access people. How do you see them moving forward together?
Yeah, and I think that ties into one of the other things that I think is a solution, which is, people who are innovators are, they're quick and they like to do things in a certain way, and people who are in bureaucracies like to do things with certain systems, and there's just not that cross-functional engagement. And so there's the innovator's arrogance of, well, we don't engage with that, and then there's the governmental sluggishness of, well, we don't, that's just too upsetting. And I think, for me, as I build the fund, it's been having, everyone from the most extreme views, from people who work solely on access to people who say, I'm going to make this tablet with solar power and it's going to completely take away the need for school. And I like to say that, for one, it doesn't make sense to do it step by step, to say, let's first scale bad schools and then let's go back and make bad schools good schools. At the same time, a generation is being lost. Not to say that while we're inventing new and radical ways, we should forget about access. Because a lot of you, I know, work in remote communities and have children there who will never learn to read unless you teach them. And the value of that cannot be underestimated. But I think some of it is being a journalist and saying what is out there and truly understanding what's out there. And some of it is being a scientist and saying what is working and what isn't. And those who innovate very often get so excited about the innovation that they forget to plug that into the existing system and see what parts are working. If this is a great computer or tablet, what does that mean for the role of the teacher? And what does that mean for the role of the government? And I think it's bringing together those different processes that help solve it.
Thank you for sharing. If you had the opportunity to connect children in the United States who do not have the same sort of harsh realities as some of the children that you described in Pakistan or other countries, what would you think is the most important bridge, communication, conversation that should be had between both groups of children?
I think it's similarity, and that to me was the most, and seeing that similarity, that to me was the most striking thing about Malala and the movement that she started. I have been there and seen hundreds of thousands of cards, ranging from a child in Bangladesh saying, here's my hair clip, I don't know if you have a hair clip, to a child in Beverly Hills writing a rap song in short shorts, right? And all of them say, I am Malala, because all of them have a struggle. Whether it is bullying or body image or lack of access to school, all girls and very often boys feel a connection to the statement of I am Malala. And I think helping everyone see that similarity, for one. And another is, I think, the humility to accept that what you know is right may not be right. One of my friends in the audience is Genevieve over there, and she works in Pakistan's most remote communities. And I love this story that she told me the other day. She said, I went into a community and I held out my hand to shake this religious leader's hand, because in the community I was in before, everyone was shaking hands. And she said, the guy next to me hit my hand so hard that it left a mark. And I was horrified when I heard that. I said, what did you do? Did you scream at him? Did you tell him, how dare you touch me? And she said, no, I was so humiliated. I was so embarrassed. I thought I would never be invited back into the community. And I think it's that understanding of this connection, and this understanding is greater than us. And what I know may not be right here, but I'm willing to put myself aside for the sake of the connection that's necessary to connect some of the most disparate communities in the world.
While on your journey, did you ever felt like giving up, or did anyone give any negative connotation to you, like what you're doing won't make a difference? And if so, how did you get through that?
Of course. Try being in your 20s and leading one of the most famous girl in the world's campaigns. Everyone says, wait, why? Who? I often joke I'm the consolation prize when Malala can't make it places. But it's true, especially when you're doing something young. And the nonprofit space is a very official, formal space, and it has its systems, and it expects you to be a certain age and act a certain way to do things. And I think, this goes back to having your mentors, friends, and cheerleaders. You need to have people who believe in you and cheer you on, and you need to allow those voices to be louder in your own head than the other ones. And, I guess one more thing I'll add to that is I do look to Malala and her dad when I get criticized, because, they have, Malala was shot in Pakistan, and that's because Pakistan has a right-wing component, and that right-wing component is, an extreme right-wing component, not in the way you would say it in the US, but very religious extremist component. And the voices of those components are very, very loud, and so a lot of that is projected onto Twitter, and they'll say things like, well, she was never shot, or she's a CIA agent, and they say it a lot. And so when I see her and her father braving that gives you the courage to say it doesn't really matter.
And stand up. And I think for me, it's still, when I think about what is the one thing that I wish I had learned as a girl, it's to stand up and ask questions. And it's still hard to do today, but I'm wondering, what is something that you wished, or you think Malala wished that she had learned as a girl, and that you want to see all girls learn?
I think that it's okay to be differently talented, and some people will always stand up and ask questions, and others will go back later and write really thoughtful emails. And I think that is lost in the way that we teach children and the way that we evaluate children. And the feeling of being unworthy, or the feeling of not having your particular talent be valued, is what I think is most damaging. And so, with the girls that you work with, I would just encourage you to see each of them for how they are talented and help uplift that, and let them know that it's okay to be an introvert, or it's okay to not do certain things that are otherwise valued very highly in society.
Well, with that, I would like to say thank you very much. It's been an honor to have you here.
Thank you.